Let me start by saying I get weekly emails with download numbers for the podcast. And when I got the email last week, it showed that we gotten the most downloads that we gotten since starting this whole thing. So we want to take the time to say thank you all for that. So, and because of that, let me bring some of the newer listeners up to speed. Um, since there might be some of you that haven't listened to all 111 of the previous episodes. And if you haven't, shame on you. But with that said, they're still there if you want to listen to it at your leisure. And while you're catching up, as always, tell 50 friends to tell 50 friends. And I say as always, but I guess if I'm like getting the new listeners up to speed, you're not familiar with that phrase. But I often tell people when you listen, if you like it, even if you don't like it, tell 50 friends to tell 50 friends. And if you have 50 friends, that makes you special. They're probably not all real friends, but that goes back to another episode. But anyway, ignore that. And I will say, to your credit, there are quite a few of you all that do go back and listen to previous episodes each week, because I get numbers on that as well. And we really appreciate that. So to catch you up, the newer listeners, like I said, this show is obviously about dating, but it focuses on dating amongst the, let's say, more mature, or at least those of us that's supposed to be more mature, because, that's kind of hit or miss. Let's just call it what it is, though. It's geared toward, or it caters toward those who are older, more mature. And what I mean by older, that can be whatever age range you want it to be. It can be people in their 80s. To some people, those are older. And it can be to those people that are younger. It all depends. Older is all relative. The demographic, though, I will say, it does not skew to those that are in their 20s. 20-year-olds, they don't really know anything about dating. They're still trying to figure it out. But this podcast started because I, along with friends of mine in our 40s and 50s, were and still are shocked. Can't talk today. What's up with this? But my friends in their 40s and 50s were, and they still are, shocked by the difficulty for people in our age range, how difficult it is for people in that age range to date successfully. And it's not necessarily geared toward a specific gender. So men are having issues, women are having issues. And even though you hear more about women having issues, guys out there, we're struggling too. And I am one in particular that can vouch for that. So that's pretty much the backstory of how this podcast started. Also, you'll notice on these episodes that I always use the pronoun we. And I talk about Reggie. And for those that don't know, the newer listeners, Reggie is not an imaginary friend of mine. He's actually a real person, and he's the person that I started this podcast with. And if you go back and listen to the first 50 episodes or so, and also the 99th episode, you heard him. He was there. Then Reggie took a sabbatical, and since then he chose to leave, or whatever you want to call it. And I still enjoy trolling him by referring to him in the episode since he left, and he gets a weird kick out of it as well. So that's that for that. So with all of that said, I think that's enough of the backstory and all of that stuff on the show. So welcome to any and all of the newer listeners, and thank you to all of the earlier listeners as well. Thank you to everyone. And in the same vein of the history of the show, I'm recording this show, well, in the same vein of the history of the show, I am recording this episode on Easter Sunday. Now, with that said, there's no telling when people will listen to it, but yeah, for whatever reason, me and Reggie, we record on Easter Sunday, which brings me to the episode, I think it was last Easter, was entitled God. And to this day, it is the most downloaded show by far. It's like twice as much as the next most popular show, which is the very first show, which in my opinion was the worst show that we ever did. But whatever works. But the God episode is actually decent. I actually enjoy listening to it. And I think you will too. If you haven't listened to it, go back and listen to it. And happy Easter to everyone, even though when you probably listen to this, it won't be Easter anymore. So I hope you had a good Easter. That's all I can add. That's all I can say. Another thing that's common about the show is that we point out divorces that happen after decades of marriage. I'm just fascinated about that. We- And that's the reason we do it, just because it is really amazing to me that after decades of being together, people still cannot figure out how to coexist in love. And I am, again, amazed by that. So, on that note, and because I hadn't mentioned any in a while, this must be the season for divorce, because we have a laundry list today that I want to end this show on talking about this brief welcome and divorce and all of that stuff. So let's go down this list of divorces. First one, Kenan Thompson. For people that don't know, Kenan Thompson, he is now on SNL. He started off as a child actor, had a show on, I think it was Nickelodeon, him and his partner Kale, Kenan and Kale, and they, I don't know what they did. I never watched it, to be honest. I think they worked in some kind of malt shop or something like that. And they just had hilarious, wacky hijinks. Yucca, 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 whatever. Anyway, so now he's on Saturday Night Live, and he and his wife, they've been together for 14 years, and then they've been married for 10, so 24 years all together. And while honestly, I didn't even know that he was married, because I really don't pay much attention to his wife. 24 years is a long time. And before I continue, let me just, I brought up Keenan and Kale, but I wonder whatever happened to Kale. Does anybody know? Hmm. Anyway, that's another story. No need dwelling on that. Anyway, Keenan and his wife, they actually got married at the Georgia Aquarium. And for those that aren't familiar with it, the Georgia Aquarium claims to be the largest aquarium in the world. And I have to say, I hadn't been to a ton of aquariums, but I have been to the Georgia Aquarium and a couple others, and it's pretty impressive. It's like they had this little tunnel that you can walk through, and it's like water on all sides and a little fish and stuff are like all swimming around. It's pretty cool. So if you ever come to Atlanta, hey, go check it out. Or if you live here, go check it out. On a side note, it's funny how people can live in a place for so long and not visit the landmarks that make that city or whatever what it is. It's funny because I was here for like shoot 10 years at least before I ever went to the King Center. And so yeah, it's funny how I was having a conversation with a couple people not too long ago, and we were having that very same conversation, and they were talking about how what were we, oh, they're talking about they're from New York, and they were talking about how they had never been to the Statue of Liberty, things like that. And that actually happens with people that live in darn near every city. You just kind of take the things that everybody else appreciates for granted. But that's enough of my soapbox about the Georgia Aquarium. But you should go see it if you're here. And if you ever come to Atlanta, Georgia, you should go see it and all of that stuff. With all that said, I can only imagine how much it costs to get married at the largest aquarium in the world, because they have to shut down for the whole day. So they can't take any visitors, because I think that you do the whole thing, or maybe there's just a part that you block off. Either way, it is not cheap. As a matter of fact, that cost alone, when thinking about it, would have been enough that would have bound me and my wife for more than 10 years. Because when I think, now mind you, I've never been married, but I would think that even when I'm thinking about divorcing my wife, besides the cost that it will take just to get the divorce and how much money that she'll take of his, I would definitely factor in that the cost to rent that spot too, when making a determination as to whether I want to really divorce that person or not. I tell you what, they always say it's cheaper to keep her. But when factoring it in, I'm not just thinking about alimony and child support. I'm thinking about all the tens of thousands that I'm sure it costed to get married in the first place. Boggles the mind. So they're done. So 24 years together, 10 marriage, 14 dating, and they are done just like that. So that's one. For my baseball fans out there, there's Albert Pujols and his wife. They're divorcing after 22 years of marriage. And for those that aren't familiar with Albert, like I said, he's not just a baseball player. Well, he is a baseball player, but he's not just a baseball player. He's a great baseball player and will be in the Hall of Fame for sure when he retires. Now, what makes this particular divorce icky, and icky, yeah, is the word that I'm using for this because I can't think of another word. It's just kind of creepy, slimy. It makes you just feel kind of about the whole thing. But what makes this whole thing weird, icky about him filing for divorce with from his wife is that he did it days after she had surgery to remove a brain tumor. All I can say about that is wow. Now, not to defend Albert on this because there really is no defense on the timing of that, but to kind of, it was bad, but I guess to his credit, I guess if you want to say it like that, he did admit that the timing was awkward. That's the quote. Yeah. The timing was awkward. She just got out of brain surgery. I guess he figured, hey, she lived through it, so now I can serve her with the papers. Yeah, just because she lived through it, maybe you should have thought a little bit more about that. Now, with that said, it is what it is. I don't know the dynamics of their marriage, obviously, but I I don't know. That's not funny. None of that's funny, but come on. That's all I had to say about that. The timing was awkward. Now, I understand that when you're ending a marriage, your spouse probably isn't your favorite person during that time. I get that. You might even hate the chick or hate the dude, or in this case, in Albert's case, hate the chick. But I think that after 22 years of marriage, you'd at least it at least make you have like a some level of respect for your spouse, even if you can't stand their guts. At least enough respect that you would have at least waited till she recovered from the brain surgery, and I'm sure it takes more than a few days to recover from brain surgery. So he could have at least waited till she had her motor skills back. Because I'm assuming there's some physical therapy that comes with it. I don't know, but yeah, either way, man, it was a bad look. It was a bad look. And again, to his credit, because I can't think of another word to describe it, at least he did, upon reflection, admit that the timing was bad. And, hey, if we all had a little bit more self reflection and could admit the wrongdoings, what a better place I, I got nothing. I'm trying to defend the dude. Yeah. Yeah. But I don't even think I'd do that to an enemy. Now, with that said, I probably wouldn't be married to an enemy. But with that said, also, I guess considering how these marriages end, I guess that person that you love eventually turns into an enemy. But still, this is somebody that you made like forever vows to. You took a vow before God or whoever you serve that you would be with this person to your dying day. And not only did you not do that, but man, you served her papers as she was getting out of the hospital or however long after she had the brain surgery. But I don't know. It's a bad look. It's a bad look. Yeah. I just don't see how anybody couldn't have seen that as being bad before they did it. It's like, what were his homeboys saying? His lawyer who drafted the papers. I'm sure somebody was like, yeah, Albert, maybe you could wait a little bit before you do this. But apparently not. But again, I'm not Albert, so I wasn't part of that marriage. So maybe she did something that was so bad that he was like, F that. Even despite brain surgery, brain tumor, all that mess, I can't stand you so much. It's like that Khalees song. I hate you so much right now. Ah. Yeah, I love that song, by the way. Well, Khalees is another one who, well, never mind. Khalees, for people that don't know, she's a singer. She used to be a singer. She doesn't sing anymore. But yeah, she had that song, I Hate You So Much. She also had that song, the milkshake song, My Milkshake Brings All the Boys to the Yard. I think that's actually more popular than the song I'm referring to. But Khalees's first album, Kelis, it was pretty good. There's still like a couple of joints that I really liked off that. As a matter of fact, soon as I finish this episode, I'm going into the room and I'm gonna have Alexa play some Khalees joints because that first album is in my head. But anyway, so Albert and his wife, their marriage is done after 22 years. Okay, let's keep it rolling. A lot of you might have heard of this and a lot might not have. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you have or not. I assume that I know you all. So I shouldn't assume, considering I don't know you all, what you are aware of and what you aren't aware of. But Anthony Anderson, he's the star of the show, the sitcom Blackish, which I think is in its last season and will be ending forever. I am not very familiar with the show myself because I don't think I've ever watched an entire episode of that joint. But oh, Tracy Ellis Ross is in that joint, Diana Ross's daughter. I actually used her as an example in the perimenopause episode of this podcast, which is another one that you should go back and listen to if you hadn't listened to it already. But yeah, Tracy Ellis Ross is the one that the inspiration for that episode. She's also Anthony Anderson's co-star on the show Blackish. But anyway, she's not in this. She's never been married. She's a Virgo like me, and she's never been married like me. Anyway, Anthony Anderson, he's not a Virgo, and he has been married. Well, he is technically still married, and he's one of those dudes. He lost a lot of weight a little while ago, and while I applaud him for keeping the weight off, he still I still haven't adjusted to him in his smaller body. It still looks a little strange looking at him with that smaller body. But hey, he did what he had to do. Shout out to him for that. But with that said, Anthony Anderson, like Albert Pujols, he didn't file while his wife had brain surgery. He has been married like Albert for 22 years. And actually, another difference between him and Albert, one, he didn't file while his wife had a brain tumor, but he actually didn't file at all. Actually, his wife is divorcing him. She's the one that actually filed. And while they were married for 22 years, they had been together for 10 years before that. So they had been together for 32 total years. So she actually filed before in 2015, and they wound up getting back together and they wound up giving it another shot. Now, that was 7 years ago. So that would have meant that they were married for 15 years at that point, and they would have been together for 25 years at that point. If you do file for divorce, I think it's nothing but fair for you to say, I filed, but let's make a decision to give this another shot, give it another crack. So I think that's fair. And that's what they decided to do after she filed the first time, got another 7-year run out of that. And I guess she was like, yeah, maybe I guess I should have filed in 2015. Well, she did file in 2015, but I'm guessing she should have said, yeah, I should have went ahead with that and not pulled that filing off the table, because 7 years later, they're back to it. I can't see her saying, those were 7 good years since. So I don't regret not filing at all or pulling the filing off the table at all. Or maybe she did. I don't know. But for her to file back then and for her to file now, the impression that I would get is, yeah, she was like, I'll be dang. Shoot, the same stuff that was happening then are happening now. Because really, I can't imagine new stuff happening on top of the bad stuff. It's usually just the same stuff, just happening over and over again. Then you figure that you can deal with it. Other person apologizes and say they'll never do it again. And then they wind up doing it again, whatever it is. And while I don't like to assume, even though assuming is all that I have been doing in this whole episode, so why not? So why stop now? I would assume that since she's the one that filed, that it was something that Anthony Anderson did. So, and not to throw my man under the bus, I like to try to defend the brothers, but yeah, if she's the one that's filing twice, yeah, yeah. Or shoot, maybe she found a dude or something and was just like, this dude, new dude, is better than my husband. So I'm gonna go this route. So maybe it was her. Maybe it was something she did. Yeah, who knows? Yeah, yeah. But anyway, then last 7 years later, hey, but you never know. Maybe they'll be back together again. 32 years together, 22 years married. Man, I just don't understand why you can't have it figured out in that much time. What else is there in life that you don't become a master of in 32 years? At the least, it's not even like that you have to be a master of women or be a master of men. You have to be a master of one woman or one man. You should know everything about that woman or that man in 32 years. And amongst those things, one of the things that you should definitely know is how to make and how to keep that person happy. There, if I now mind you, I don't want to dwell on this. I guess I do want to dwell on this because I'm about to dwell on this. There is nothing in life. Now, mind you, when you're married, you're together every single day. Well, not every single day, but I would say 95% of the time, unless your spouse works in an industry where you travel a lot. And even though Anthony Anderson travels for work and things like that, still, let's knock it down and say over the 32 years, they had been together 80% of the time. 32 years, 80% of the time being together. There is nothing that you can spend that amount of time on and be an expert. So it amazes me that after all of these years with these couples, they they have not become experts on this one person. The one person that they chose to marry, the one person they took a vow before God to be an expert on, essentially. It might not be stated that way in the vows, but that's what it is when you're talking about, I'm going to make you happy to love and to honor and cherish and all of that stuff. You're basically saying, I am going to be an expert on you. And over the course of that time, you had plenty of practice, study materials, ups, downs, all of that. You should know everything about that person, including, like I said, how to make them happy and how to keep them happy. Like, I, I just don't understand. I just don't understand how, after that much time doing anything, how you're not like a master. Yeah, yeah. But now that I'm thinking about it, though, maybe if you are a master on that person, that doesn't necessarily mean that you want to use the materials. Man, that would be really selfish if you're thinking like, yeah, I know how to make him happy, or I know how to make her happy. I just don't want to do it. Yeah, you're right, Michael. I am a master of my wife. I am a master of my husband. I know how to make them happy. I know what it takes. I know what buttons to push. I just don't want to do it anymore. Yeah, or maybe, or yeah, that's it's like a chicken and egg thing. It's like, yo, I can see you being like, yo, I'm not, I know what to do to make her happy, but I'm not going to do it anymore because she's not doing it to make me happy. So you're both masters and experts on each other, but you neither one of you want to carry out the duties to actually like make the person happy. You don't want to like exert your expertise. Wow. That's like taking petty to the next level. It's like, I can make you happy. I just don't want to. I mean, if I make you happy, you're gonna make me happy. I I don't know. I don't know how that works. I hadn't been married, so I don't know. And just saying I've been in a ton of relationships, I don't think that yeah, in the relationships, even the longer term relationships that I've been in, I don't know that I've been in them long enough to get a doctorate in relationships in the same way that these people after 20, 22 years, 32 years of being together, how they should have a doctorate and then some. They should have like the 57th level black belt in just that one person. But yeah, I guess if you get the black belt and you don't continue to practice, it is what it is. Yeah. But with that said, with Anthony Anderson and his wife, just like all of these couples, maybe there's a chance that they can get back together and work this thing out. And hey, it worked before. Maybe it will again. And like I always say when I talk about these divorces, I don't want anybody to think that I'm ever rooting for these things. And even though I get a laugh out of some of them, I'm not. Yeah. Yeah, if I had a choice in how I wish that these things would go, I celebrate love. I love love. And I would always choose for these people to stay together as opposed to getting divorced just so they can be content for a podcast. But with that said, it is what it is. And maybe, who knows, maybe they will get back together. I don't think Albert Pujols and his wife are getting back together though, because I would find it hard to get back with somebody who left me while I was recovering from a brain tumor surgery. Yeah, yeah. But stranger things have happened. But so that's Anthony Anderson and his wife. And the last one that I want to speak about, and I'll admit that this one hits me kind of close to the heart because, I'll tell you in a minute why. Cindy Herron Cindy Herron of the singing group In Vogue and her husband, Glenn Braggs, also a former baseball player like Albert Pujols. He just wasn't as good as Albert, but he was in the league long enough that he made some really good money. But they're getting divorced after 29 years of marriage. Now, this one hits me close to the heart, not because I'm like, oh my goodness, I was just so celebratory of their marriage and all of that stuff. I don't know much of anything about their marriage. Yeah, whatever. It hits me close to the heart because of the love that I had personally for Cindy back in the day. Back in the days, Cindy from En Vogue was second to none. And I remember my heartbreak actually when I first heard that they were married 29 years ago, which speaks partially to how old I am. But yeah, I remember when the announcement came out that the two of them were getting married. And I was like, oh, Cindy, as if I actually had a chance, as if like I was like 2 days away from meeting Cindy and she and I were gonna run away together. But Glenn just jumped in and beat me to it. Man, 29 years ago, shoot, I barely could find out. I could barely figure out who I was. So to think about marrying somebody back then, yeah, that would have been a mess. But I still remember her from the movie Juice. And while people talk about Tupac and all of that in the movie and all of that, I just remember Cindy in the movie. She played a nurse and she was the perfect girlfriend for a man. Now, with that said, she was cheating on her boyfriend with the dude from Juice, not Tupac's character, but another dude's character. But still, so dude was Cindy's side piece, but still, the love that I had for her didn't see that as a bad thing. The love that I have for her said that she treated her side piece so well. Yeah, as opposed to how I would normally look at the fact that she was cheating on her dude and had a side piece. Not only did she have a side piece, her side piece was in high school, and like I said, she was a nurse, so she was out of high school a long time ago, but she was kicking it with the high school kid. Big up to him, his character at least. But yeah, that's just what I think about when I think about Juice. Yeah, sorry about that. I was having a moment. Anyway, Anyway, back to the whole thing about the divorcing couples. I, when it comes to these divorcing couples and stuff like that, I truly, and I'm closing by saying this, I truly hope that they already have that next person lined up already that they're going to be with, whether it's Cindy and her husband, Albert and his wife, or Anthony Anderson and his wife. And I don't even remember who the first couple was, to be honest. Matter of fact, who was the first couple? Uh, no, yeah, you all are just gonna have to bear with me because I am not gonna let this go because I have to remember who the first person was, who the first couple was, because yeah, I just cannot remember who it was. They were, oh, Keenan Thompson. Much like the rest of life, I don't really think about him too much. So it's not really much of a surprise that I had forgotten about him, like what, 10 minutes after started talking about him. But anyway, the point I was making was that I hope all of these couples in these divorces already have lined up who they plan on being with and all of that stuff. And the reason is because, man, and it's not that I hope that anybody cheated in their marriages and stuff like that, but if they're getting divorced after all of these years and they don't have any prospects lined up as to what they're going to do next, and they're jumping back into this crappy dating pool, all I can say is good luck. They'll all definitely need it. And I feel like at this point, they'll probably all look back someday and say to themselves, after being out here in these dating streets for a while, they'll all say to themselves at some point, maybe my spouse wasn't all that bad. Now, again, Albert's wife might not say that, but the rest of them might look back because, man, you get divorced and you get back out here in these streets and realize how crappy it is. Man, you're like, maybe I should have used my doctorate, my 18th degree black belt better with that one person that I had it on. Because when you deal with all the weird stuff, all the crazy stuff that goes on, and you hear women tell their stories about dudes and the stuff that dudes do. But boy, I challenge any woman. I can match you man for man, woman for woman, because man, these women are just as crazy as these dudes, crazy in a different way, but still crazy nonetheless. And it's funny how all of us are out here and we refer to each other as crazy. Maybe we're all crazy too. Those of us that are pointing out the crazy in everybody else, but nobody wants to acknowledge that. To all of us out here in these dating streets, it's everybody else is crazy, not us. But yeah, but if you've been married for 22 years, 32 years, and you've been together for 24 years, and you weren't cheating, you don't have anybody else lined up, and you are just coming back into dating cold, decades older from the last time that you had a significant date, you're going to learn a lot. Men have changed in the sense that, I'm going on a tangent now. Men have changed in the sense that they're not willing to do the things that women are accustomed to, that women are accustomed to them having. What am I trying to say? Men aren't doing the things today that women are accustomed to them doing 29 years ago or 24 years ago or 22 years ago. Man, men aren't chasing like they used to. And if they are chasing, their motives might be kind of suspect. And conversely, women out here, they are not they are not like women that you would remember from 22 years ago, 29 years ago, or however long. Women in this whole I'm empowered, Me Too era, boy, a woman will bite your head off in a second. Women are as savage as guys were thought of having been back in the day. Women are now equally as such. And it's funny how the lines are starting to blur between male behavior and female behavior, but and women are complete women are now starting to take on the characteristics of the men that they used to complain about back in the day. And you combine that with male apathy and their unwillingness to chase in the way that they used to. I tell you what, man, how anybody gets together in this day and age, it boggles my mind. So, to those four couples coming back out into these dating streets, and don't think for a second that just because you're decades older and you might be more mature, that you're going to get that same maturity back in concern if you are mature, because a lot of people say they're mature just because they're older, but they still act the way that they did when they were 20. But if you are mature and you're expecting maturity in return in your dating experiences, yeah, again, good luck. Good luck. And yeah, maybe your spouse wasn't so bad. Trust me when I say that. And I'm not married again. Yeah. Yeah. And yeah. Yeah. I tell you what, every now and then I think about exes for half a second and then I remember why we broke up and I'm like, oh yeah, yeah. Being by yourself isn't the worst thing in the world. Being in a relationship is better than being by yourself, but being in a good, healthy relationship is better than being by yourself. Being in a bad, unhealthy relationship is worse than being by yourself. So, for those four couples and the rest of us that sit in this purgatory state of being by yourself, because I don't want to say being alone or lonely because people get offended by that. But while you're by yourself, just make the most of it. It's like being in a beige house, just a bland house. And it's like, well, if I got to be in this shotgun house, this beige and has no decoration, yeah, I may as well try to throw some drapes on it or something. Throw a fresh coat of paint on it. Maybe, yeah, yeah, yeah. Make it look as good as I can. And I don't know why I'm looking around. People that can't see me, I'm looking around as I'm saying that, as if I'm looking around my house like it's beige. But yeah, but yeah, it's perfect time to work on yourselves and become more introspective and think about all the things that you did wrong in these relationships because it can't always be them. It's you as well. And now I'm starting to ramble. So I will end this episode. Thank you all for joining. Happy Easter for all of you that celebrate Easter. Yeah, happy Easter. And if you don't celebrate it, most of you didn't even get a day off because most people don't get Good Friday off. So if you don't celebrate it, you probably didn't get anything from it. Sorry, or not. Hey, that's your relationship with God or the Christian God or however you define God. Yeah. Anyway, not going down that road again. Listen to the God episode if you want to know how I feel about that. Yeah. But yeah, that's it for me today. Reggie, come say goodbye to the people. Yeah. Reggie's not talking once again. Reggie's being Reggie, as we always like to say. And actually, that is a saying that me and a couple of friends we often use. Yeah. But with all that said, all right, I'm done. Have a good week. All that stuff. And whenever you listen to it, if you're listening to it on a Friday, have a good weekend. Whatever. Have a good whatever. Bye.